In this video, I'm going to break down the quickest way to get your private pilot's license.
That's like autopilot, dude.
How do you fly a helicopter? Well, I'm going to show you.
We're going to break this video down into 4 parts: preparation, execution, timeline, and your expectations. To go through this process as fast as possible, there's a couple things you have to prepare before you start the process. The first thing you need to do is go get your FAA medical. You do this by going and meeting with an aviation medical examiner. Get your medical, make sure that that process is all secured. The next thing you need to do is make sure that you've got all your finances in order. Make sure you have all the money in hand. I've got multiple videos on the channel about how much flight school costs, so go check those out, but make sure you do have the money on hand before you start. Now, this next one is optional, but if you are trying to go through this process as fast as possible, I recommend that you go get your FAA written test, your FAA knowledge test out of the way before you start the process. I would spend a couple days, maybe a week long, studying the FAA knowledge test using some study software, and I would set up your appointment at an FAA testing center, go on the computer, go to the testing center, get on the computer, and knock it out before you get started. Now, the next thing you need to do is go find a flight school. There may be a flight school close to you that can accommodate your wishes, but you may have to travel, or you may have to move to a different location where there's a flight school. But I would set up a meeting with them, with either the assistant chief pilot, the chief pilot, maybe the owner of the flight school, someone really high up in the company, and have a sit down meeting with them and talk to them and go over your expectations. Tell them that you want to get your private pilot's license as quickly as possible, and tell them what you're going to need. Now, after you have prepared all these previous items, the last thing you should do is probably buy some gear. I'm just going to throw all the gear up real quick on the screen that I think you should have. This is probably the last step you need to do before you technically start going through the process. You'll need an aviation plotter, a flight calculator, or a flight computer. You might want to consider getting an iPad. You don't really need it, but you should consider it. You're going to need sectional charts from your local flying area and maybe some other areas around. You're going to need the absolute newest edition of the FAR-AIM, whatever the most recent year is. I would recommend buying your own POH, Pilot's Operating Handbook, for whatever helicopter you're going to be doing your training in, so that you can have one on hand. You should probably buy the FAA's Aviation Weather Handbook. You should buy the Helicopter Flying Handbook. You might want to consider buying a GoPro and all the related cables so that you can film your lessons. I highly recommend this. You're probably going to want to buy your own aviation headset. You can get something nice like the Bose 20s, you can get the Lightspeed Zulus, or you can get something as simple as the David Clarks, which are a little bit more affordable. And I also recommend that you buy yourself a knee board for all your documents while you're flying. Alright, so you're all prepared. Now we need to execute and go through the process of getting our private pilot's license. Now, if you are trying to do this as fast as possible and you have the time, I would recommend setting up 2 flights per day. 2 flights per day is probably the maximum, and I would separate them, maybe one in the morning, one in the afternoon, or have one come down on the ground, take a break, eat something, calm down, and then go back again. But 2 flights a day is a good number, and it's the maximum number. Now, I would set up 1 ground lesson with your instructor every day, and most likely they're going to have a training outline with everything that you need to learn on the ground, and you'll just go with them through that training outline and learn everything on the ground. On any days where there's maintenance problems or the weather's bad and you cannot fly, I would use those days to study as much as possible. Now, a couple recommendations for the flying part of this. First, talk with your instructor the day before your flight and understand exactly what the flight is going to be, what maneuvers you're going to do, what you're going to work on, and the night before, review those maneuvers. Maybe get a little toy helicopter and talk yourself through the maneuvers, talk yourself through the controls, maybe sit at a chair, close your eyes, and just go through the movement and try to understand what the next day's flights are going to be. Always ask for demonstrations. Obviously, the instructor is going to demonstrate a maneuver maybe once or twice, but if you're not getting it, ask for more demonstrations. It's much easier to do a monkey see, monkey do than really just try to figure it out on your own. So just ask for demonstrations all the time if you're not getting something. I really highly recommend getting that GoPro with the audio cable. I've got a video down below which I recommend my setup, but get that video and review the footage after every single flight. Go home, maybe take a shower, eat some food, take an hour to decompress, and then go and watch that whole video. Watch everything that happened, because while you're flying and trying to learn, your instructor is going to be talking, air traffic control is going to be talking, and things are just going to go in one side and out the other. But if you can go back after you've decompressed, after you're chilling out at home, comfortable, then you can watch that video and you're going to see things, you're going to hear things that you weren't able to get while you were actually flying. So that GoPro is invaluable. And the last recommendation I have is just to journal your process. Journal your wins, your losses, what you struggled with on each flight. I didn't know that until I was about halfway through my private, but that really helped, and it was also fun to reflect on, to hear about what you were struggling with. As you write it out and you think about it, you may start to build some connections and things might start to happen. Now, a couple recommendations for the ground knowledge stuff. You have to be a self-study. If you want to go through this process really fast, or if you just want to be a helicopter pilot in general, you have to study yourself. You have to really learn this stuff yourself. You have to go do research. You have to try to understand the concept yourself. Yes, there are people to help you and tools to help you and all sorts of books, but you have to be the one to go drive and go get it and find it and learn it. The next thing is come in every day with at least 10 questions. Write them down and go into your instructor and ask them 10 questions. It can be about flight related stuff, ground related stuff, but come in prepared with questions and not just like surface level questions like easy stuff. Come in with like hard questions that are like big concepts that you really need to understand and get a solid understanding of this. If you come in every day with 10 questions, you're going to put yourself in a really good position. The last two kind of go hand in hand. Study with another student. If you can get another student that's a little bit ahead of you, that's better. So maybe they're working on their commercial or their instrument. They've got a little bit more knowledge and they can help you. So work with another student. The next thing is just watch videos. I make YouTube videos, but there's tons of helicopter pilot YouTube videos, things that you can learn on YouTube, on the internet. Spend time watching videos. The more total immersion you get into helicopters, the better. Watch videos, read stuff, read books, as much knowledge as you can get and just totally be swimming in the depths of it, the better. And now we're going to go over the timeline. Now this is just a super generic timeline, so don't hold yourself to this at all. Things could go a lot faster, things could go a lot slower. So this is just a generic timeline if everything kind of works out as a normal, quick private pilot would go. So technically you need 40 hours of flight time to get your FAA private pilot's license. Most people don't hit 40 hours, so I would bank and plan on about 50 hours. You could go a little bit beyond that, which is fine. You could come under that, which is great, but plan on 50 hours. So if you are able to set up 2 flights a day, the school can accommodate it, you can accommodate it, the instructors can accommodate it, everything works out, and you can do 2 flights a day times 5 days a week. I would definitely give yourself 2 days to rest, probably Saturday and Sunday or whatever works with your schedule, but definitely give yourself 2 days to rest just to decompress and get set up for the next week. But if you can do 2 flights per day times 5 days a week, and each flight is about an hour long, you will have about 50 hours in 5 weeks. But there's a 100% chance guarantee that something's going to come up with either your schedule, helicopter maintenance, the instructor's schedule, or weather, so you won't be able to fly on all 5 days for both flights. So it's 5 weeks of flight time, but we're going to throw in another week in there because things inevitably will happen. So let's call it 6 weeks of flight time. You're going to need 1 full week of Checkride Prep. So this is where you're doing a mostly ground knowledge because you're probably pretty good at the flights. 1 week of just really hard studying with your instructor, getting prepared for your Checkride, getting all your documents, everything prepared. So that's 1 week. So in my opinion, if you start with nothing and you want to get your private pilot's license, it's going to take you approximately 7 weeks. Now there are tons and tons and tons of variables. Like I said, don't hold yourself to this. Your timeline can change a bunch. Go talk with that flight school before you start this process and tell them that this is what you want. This is how you're thinking about it. They'll set your timeline and that might be a little bit more accurate. So like I said, don't hold yourself to this, but this is a decent timeline for the fastest way you can get your private pilot's license. Now quickly, the last thing we're going to talk about is a couple expectations. The first one is I can almost guarantee your timeline is not going to hold to what you want it to be. There will be delays. Things are not going to happen as fast as you want. Things may happen too fast. Your timeline is not going to hold it exactly as you planned. So just be okay with that. The second thing is it's probably going to cost more than you plan. For some reason throughout your training, you're going to have to pay for something you didn't plan for. You're going to have to buy extra flights. You're going to have to buy extra things, maybe extra ground sessions, whatever. Things are just going to be a little bit more expensive than you planned. So plan on having a little bit of cushion room to pay for extra things that pop up. The third thing is you're going to struggle with some maneuvers. Now I'm saying this as plainly as I can, but you will truly struggle with certain maneuvers. There's going to be maybe 1 or 2 maneuvers that you just can't get. Keep working through it. You're going to be okay, but just plan on being bad at something. Now the last one is you're going to struggle with some knowledge stuff. There's going to be certain things and concepts that don't make sense. There's going to be certain regulations that you just don't understand. There's going to be parts of the sectional and the FAR aim that you're just not getting. So be okay with that. Keep studying, keep pushing, keep trying to learn. Eventually it will all come together, but just be okay in knowing that all pilots struggle with certain things and it's not going to come to you perfectly naturally. And the last step is to go take your check ride. Now it's normal to have nerves and to be fearful of your check ride, but this is actually a really exciting time. You have studied, you have worked your butt off, you've paid lots of money, you've done so much, you've put so much effort into this thing, and now it's time to finally go do it. I really enjoyed my check rides. I was super nervous for every single one of them. I will continue to be nervous for all of them, but once you're into it and you settle down, it's really fun. You're talking about helicopters, you're showing your knowledge, you're trying to think through concepts, and then you get to go fly, you get to go show your skills, you get to go show that you're a safe and efficient pilot, and at the end of it, you are a helicopter pilot, or you have a new rating, or maybe you mess something up and you have to come back and try again. But it's really not the end of the world if you mess up on your check ride and you fail. You know, of all the jobs I've ever had, never once have I been asked if I failed a check ride. It doesn't matter as long as you go back and continue and then get your rating or get your license at the end of it. So that is the fastest way to get your private pilot's license, in my opinion. There's tons of different variables. I said a lot in this video, but hopefully some of that sticks. And if you're planning on going through this process, go check out my Checkride course down below. I created a 10-hour course with all the videos, tons of content, tons of knowledge, everything you need to be prepared for your check ride. Check that out down below. If you found yourself enjoying this video, smash the like button, subscribe for all kinds of helicopter content, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.